Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. Today we're talking about Chapter 6, Lesson 6, Simple Interest. Now, interest is the amount of money charged for borrowing or using money. So if you borrow somebody else's money, you not only have to pay them back the money that you borrowed, but you're going to have to pay them back interest as well. It's kind of like a reward for the person who let you use their money. It's kind of an incentive for them giving you money in the first place. Okay, so when you deposit money into a savings account, you are paid interest. And that's really nice. So if you go ahead and deposit money into a bank, and it's a savings account, not a checking account, the bank will pay you interest for putting your money in the bank. Another type of interest is called simple interest. Now, there's all different types of interest out there, and this is just one of the ones that we're going to talk about today. Simple interest is one type of fee paid for the use of money. Down here, this is a formula that we're going to be using throughout the examples that we're looking at that deals with calculating simple interest. So here is the interest. The simple interest is the money paid only on the principal. Now, before we can really talk about this, let's talk about what the principal is. Okay? So the principal is P right here. The principal is the amount of money borrowed or invested. That is the principal. So if you are about to put money into something, whatever money you put in there initially, or the money you put in just regardless, that is called the principal. So let's go back to the interest. Simple interest is the money paid only on the principal. What that means is this interest is only generated off of the original principal. Okay, the next thing is R, which is the rate. So this is the rate. Okay, the rate of interest is the percent charged or earned. Okay, and whenever you put it into this formula, it is always the percentage is in the form of a decimal. And that is really, really key. Okay? The last thing would be the time, T. T stands for the time in years that the money is borrowed or invested. So that is our formula right here. I equals P times R times T. The simple interest is calculated by taking the original amount, multiplying it by the rate of the interest in the form of a decimal, multiplied by the number of years that you're investing that money. That's how the simple interest is found. So we're going to be using this formula a lot. I equals P times R times T. Okay? Let's go ahead and take a look and see how this is applied. So the total amount A of a money in an account after interest has been earned is the sum, remember sum means we're adding, of the principal and the interest. So after you have invested money, you've invested your original principal, okay? Now whatever money you originally invested is the principal. And then what's going to happen is over time, under the simple interest, you're going to accumulate interest. And that interest is going to be added to the principal. And then what you're going to end up with is the final amount of money. And that's how much money you have at the end of whatever you invested. So the amount is found by taking the principal and adding it to the interest. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and look at an example here. It states that find the amount of money in the account after $3,500 has been invested for 3 years at a yearly rate of 6%. Okay, so we want to find the amount of money in the account. So that's what we're trying to do. Find the amount of money in the account. Amount of money in the account. That's what our answer should be. After $3,500 has been invested for 3 years at a yearly rate of 6%. So to find the amount, we need to know the principal, which is what we know here. This is the principal here. Okay, $3,500. And then we're going to add that to the interest. Well, at this point, we don't know how much interest has been accumulated after 3 years. So what we're going to have to do is our formula. Interest equals the principal times the yearly rate in the form of a decimal multiplied by time. Okay, so we're going to use our formula here. So if we see the time that has been invested is 3 years, the yearly rate is 6%, and then we need to go ahead and convert that 6% into a decimal. So 6%, remember when we change it to a decimal, we move it 2 places to the left, and we put a 0 there. So our decimal is going to be 0.06, okay? That is going to be our yearly rate in the form of a decimal. Yeah, so then we just plug in the numbers. If we want to find the interest, our principal is $3,500. That goes in here for P. We multiply it by the yearly rate in the form of a decimal, which is 0.06, and then we multiply it by the number of years. Okay? So when we take all those calculations, for this section, we're going to go ahead and just use our calculator. So when we take all of those calculations, here, come on, turn on, turn on, turn on. There we go. We are going to take 3,500. We're going to multiply it by 0.06, and then we're going to multiply it by 3. And what we end up with is the amount of interest. The amount of interest that we earned after 3 years would be $630. Okay, so interest earned is $630 there. But we're not done because this is the interest, so this is our pink value. The question asked us to find the amount of money in the account. So if we want to find the amount of money in the account, we're going to have to use this formula. The amount of money equals the principal plus the interest. So the amount of money is something that we don't know. We need to figure that out. The principal, we know that. The principal is right here. It's $3,500. So we're going to go ahead and substitute that in for P. So A equals 3,500 plus the interest that was earned after 3 years, which is what we just figured out, which is $630. Now, adding the principal to our interest is going to tell us what our final amount is. And we can do that without a calculator, so we're going to go ahead and do that off to the side here. $3,500 plus 630. We end up with 0. 0 plus 3. 5 plus 6 is 11. Write the 1, carry the 1. 3 plus 1 is 4. So the total amount of money earned would be $4,130 right there. So that is our answer. Okay, let's go ahead and look at a couple different examples of how this works. Okay, let's see here. We're going to turn the page and look at example 1. Okay. So example 1 is finding interest and total payment on a loan. So to buy a car, Jessica borrowed $15,000 for 3 years at an annual simple interest rate of 9%. How much interest will she pay if she pays the entire loan off at the end of the 3rd year? So we need to determine how much interest will she pay. That's one thing. And then what is the total amount that she will repay? So what is the total amount she will repay? We have to figure out 2 things. So since we have to find the interest, we know that we're going to be using our, it says simple interest, so we can use our simple interest formula. And this formula only applies whenever you're dealing with simple interest, okay? So our simple interest formula is the interest is found by taking the principal, multiplying it by the interest rate in the form of a decimal, and then multiplying it by the time in years. So let's go ahead and figure out what those values are. What do we know? We don't know the interest. That's what we're trying to figure out. The interest, the total amount of interest that we're going to owe, or that Jessica is going to owe. The principal, that would be the amount borrowed. That's $15,000, okay? So that is the principal. So that means that P equals $15,000, okay? We know that amount right there. What do we know the annual percentage rate? Yes, we do. It's 9%. We need to go ahead and change that to a decimal, so we're going to move that decimal place over 2 places to the left, and we end up with 0.09. So our annual percentage rate equals 0.09. That's going to be right here. That's that 9%. And then finally, we have the time in years, which state 3 years. So that is our T, and our time in years equals 3. So this is our formula here. We have all of our variables defined. That means we know we have the variables, the letters. We are saying what the numbers which go in for the letters. And now we're just going to plug in these numbers into the formula. So interest equals the principal, which is $15,000, multiplied by the interest rate in the form of a decimal, 0.09, which is multiplied by the time, which is 3. Now we're just going to go ahead, and for this section, some things we're going to be using our calculator. Not all things, but some things. So we're just going to go ahead and put those values in. 15,000 multiplied by 0.09 times 3. Now, right here I have 0.09. If I was to put in 0.09 into my calculator, I get the same thing as just putting 0.09. So just if there's any question on that, these 2 things mean the same thing, and you can put in either and get the right answer. Okay, so now I've put in all those values into my calculator. I'm just going to go ahead and press enter. And that means that the interest equals $4,050. That's the amount of interest there. Okay? So I can say interest. How much interest? So she's borrowing this. So what's going to happen is she's going to pay this car. She's borrowing $15,000 to buy the car. Over time, she's going to have to pay back that $15,000 in addition to this $4,050. So the car is no longer worth $15,000. The car is actually worth about $19,000. That's how much money she's going to have to pay back for that car. So let's go ahead and answer the question. It says, how much interest will she pay? She will pay $4,050 in interest. Okay, that's the first question. The second question, says, what is the total amount she will pay? So for that formula, remember, it is A equals the principal plus the interest. Okay, so the total amount she will pay is going to equal the principal plus the interest. And we know these values. Okay, so we don't know the amount, but we know the principal is $15,000 plus the interest is $4,050. Okay, so that's the total amount she's going to have to pay. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this on the side. $15,000 and $4,050, and just add those two together. 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 5 is 5, 0 plus 0 is 0, 5 plus 4 is 9, and 1. So there we go. The total amount that she is going to have to pay is going to be $19,005. So she will pay a total amount of $19,005. So there you have it. There's your answer. Okay? So now I want you to go ahead and try the check it out. It's time for you to check it out. But as you're doing this problem is very similar to this problem. I want you to show your work and use this problem as a guide in order to show your work on this next problem. So let's go ahead and, where's my friend? Oh, there's the lovely pause dragon. Remind you to pause your device and check it out example 1. When you get done, press play and check your results and see how you did. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, we are back. To buy a laptop computer, Elaine borrowed $2,000 for 3 years at an annual simple interest rate of 5%. How much interest will she pay if she pays the entire loan off at the end of the 3rd year? And what is the total amount that she will pay? So we're going to have to figure out how much interest will she pay. And then finally, what is the total amount that she will repay? Okay, perfect. So we're going to find how much interest first. So, and it says simple interest, so that means we can do the simple interest formula, which is I equals P times R times T. Okay? So this is the total amount of interest she will pay, which is referring to this right here. Okay? We need to determine the principal. Well, what is the principal? The principal is she borrowed $2,000. That is the principal. So we know that P, I'm going to define my variables, P equals $2,000. Okay? The next thing we need to determine is the annual percentage rate. So the annual percentage rate is 5%. Okay? But we need to make that 5%, we need to put it in a decimal form. So we're going to have to move the decimal place over 2 places to the left, and we're left with 0.05. Okay, that is our annual percentage rate, 0.05. Right there. Lastly, we need to figure out what the time is. And the time, she borrowed for 3 years, so that's our time. So that means T equals 3. Now that we have our formula, we've defined all of our terms, we just need to go ahead and substitute these values into our formula. And that means that the interest equals the principal, which is $2,000, multiplied by the interest rate in the form of a decimal, which is 0.05, multiplied by the number of years, which is 3. Okay? So we're going to go ahead and figure out what that interest is. Okay, turn it on. clear that out. Okay, so we have 2,000 times 0.05 times 3, enter, $300. So our interest equals $300. So we can say Elaine will pay $300 in interest. Oh, that's going to be a very big lowercase I in interest. Okay, put a box around that answer. Okay, the next thing we need to determine is what is the total amount that she will pay. Okay, and we have a formula for that. The total amount, remember, she will pay is found by taking the amount equals the principal plus the interest. Okay, so the amount is found, which is what we don't know, by taking the principal and adding it to the interest. Well, we already know that the principal is $2,000 and the interest accumulated is $300, so we're just going to plug in those values. A equals, the principal is $2,000 plus the interest is $300, and if you add those together, you get $2,300. So we can answer this as Elaine will pay a total amount of $2,300. So there, if you got that one right and you showed all your work, great job. Now, if you didn't show all your work like this, I want you to go ahead and rework this problem so that you get comfortable showing your work like this. Okay, this is what is required for this type of problem. So I want you to make sure that your paper looks the same as mine. All right, let's see here. Let's go ahead and work on a different example. Let's look at example 2. Example 2 says determine the amount of investment time. Okay, so let's read this. Nancy invested $6,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 3%. She earned $450 in interest. How long was the money invested? Okay, so we're talking about a bond. Sometimes a bond is a type of investment where you can go and buy a bond, and that means you give people your money. So Nancy is giving, not a person, but an institution that gives out bonds, $6,000. Now, the institution that takes the $6,000 is going to go use that for something, okay? But they will pay you back the $6,000 plus the interest after a year. Depending on how long that they invested it. For this example, they're going to pay you back $450. We have to figure out how long. But bonds are under simple interest as well. So there's just different types of investment. Bonds are a type of investment that is very secure, which means you're not going to lose your money. There's other types of investments where you invest your money, like in the stock market or things like that, or mutual funds, and what can happen is you can actually end up losing your money. Bonds are very secure, so if you invest your money, you are definitely going to get your money back with a small portion of interest. Okay, so this is in simple interest. Whenever you see the word bond in any of these problems, you know that you're dealing with simple interest. So we're going to use our simple interest formula, which is I equals P times R times T. Okay, so let's go ahead and figure out what things we know. Well, we have $6,000, and that is our principal. So that's our P. We know that P equals $6,000. Okay. What else do we know? Nancy invested $6,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 3%. Well, we know the yearly rate. The yearly rate is 3%. But we just need to go ahead and make that into a decimal. So I'm going to take the 3% and change it to a decimal by moving the decimal place over 2 places to the left. And I get the rate is 0.03. Okay. Then it says she earned $450 in interest. So she earned $450 in interest. So that is what she earned here. So that means I equals 450. And it wants to know how long was the money invested. Well, we don't know that, how long the money was invested. That is our T, okay? So we're actually going to be solving this for T. We need to get T by itself. So to do that, first, we're going to input these values into the formula. We defined our terms, which is great. Write the formula, define your terms, and now we substitute the numbers in for the variables. So I is 450 equals the principal, which is 6,000, multiplied by the annual percentage rate, which is 0.03, multiplied by T. All right, perfect. So in order to solve this problem, first we need to simplify this part right here, 6,000 times 0.03. So I'm going to go ahead and do that part over here. 6,000 times 0.03. 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 0 is 0, 3 times 6 is 18. There are 2 decimal places, so that means my answer is going to have 2 decimal places. So I end up with 180. So this right here equals 180. So I have 450 equals 180 multiplied by T. All right, great. I need to get T by itself. So I need to get rid of this 180, okay? So it's 180 times T, so I'm going to do the inverse operation of multiplication, which would be dividing 180 to both sides. I'm going to go ahead and simplify this. I know that 180 divided by 180 is just 1, so now I have T by itself, which is great. Looking at these two, I know that 10 goes into both of these. 10 goes into 450 45 times. 10 goes into 180 18 times. I'm going to simplify them further. I also know that 9 goes into both of these. 9 goes into 45 5 times, and 9 goes into 18 2 times. So I end up with 5 over 2. T equals 5 over 2, and if I was to change that to a mixed number, 2 goes into 5 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4 with 1 left over, so it's 2.5. So how long was the money invested? The money was invested, invested, we'll make this a little bigger, invested for 2.5 years. All right, so notice how we solved that problem. We noticed that it was a bond uses simple interest, so we wrote down the simple interest formula. Then we defined all the terms. We substituted the terms into the formula, and then we used our algebra skills to solve for T, and we found out it was she invested it for 2.5 years. So now it is your turn, ladies and gentlemen, to check it out. I want you to go ahead and solve this problem just as I did up here. So I want you to go through this same process, show all your work, okay? So that is what is needed for this problem. So go ahead, pause your device, work out, check it out, example 2, and we'll see you in a little bit. All right, we're back with check it out example 2. Let's see how you did. TJ invested $4,000 in a bond. Well, when it says bond, I know that we're using simple interest. So that means we can use the simple interest formula. So TJ invested $4,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 2%. He earned $200 in interest. how long was the money invested? All right, great. So I know it's a bond, so we're using simple interest, so I can use my formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Now I just need to figure out what information I have. So it says TJ invested $4,000. If he invested $4,000, that means that is our principal. Okay? So I'm going to define my terms. P equals 4,000. TJ invested $4,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 2%. Well, that's telling me what my rate is. My rate is 2%. Okay, but I need to put it as a decimal. So I'm going to go 2% and change it into a decimal. That means I'm going to move it 2 places to the left, which is going to end up making this 0.02. So my rate equals 0.02. All right. He earned $200 in interest. Okay, so $200, this is the amount of interest earned. So that is this I. So I equals $200. So now that we have our formula, we defined all our terms, now we just need to go ahead and substitute these values into the formula. So interest would be $200 equals the principal is $4,000 times the yearly rate, which is 0.02, multiplied by the T. Now the T is the thing that we don't know. We're trying to figure out how long. That's referring to time. Okay, we don't know the T. We got to figure it out. So we need to go ahead and isolate the T and get it by itself. To do that, first we have to simplify this side of the equation by multiplying 4,000 times 0.02. So I can do that off to the side. 4,000 times 0.02. 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 0 is 0, 2 times 4 is 8. There are 2 decimal places, so that means my answer is going to have 2 decimal places. So, yeah, these 2 together equal $80. So we have 80T. Okay, I'm still trying to get T by itself. Right now there's an 80, so I need to do the inverse operation of multiplication, which would be division. I'm going to divide both sides by 80. Okay, 80 divided by 80 would be 1. 1 times T is just T. I'm going to go ahead and simplify this fraction. I know that 10 goes into both of these. 10 goes into 200 20 times. 10 goes into 80 8 times. I can simplify this further. I know that 4 goes into both of these. 4 goes into 25 times, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. And so we're left with 5 over 2. So the time of investment was 5 over 2, or we can change this to a mixed number. 2 goes into 5 2 times, and 2 times 2 is 4. There's 1 left over, so, or 2.5 years. So the money was invested for 2.5 years. So if you got that right and showed all your work like this, you are on the right track. You are doing amazing, and we will see you next time.